Now to the ripple effects inside the White House after President Trump's reactions to Charlottesville and the departure of White House chief strategist Steve Bannon. Here to help break it all down are Politics Monday regulars Amy Walter of the Cook Political Report and Tamara Keith of NPR. And welcome to both of you. Politics Monday. The country got through last week, Amy. But I think it's fair to ask the question how much damage was done to the president. I was away last week enjoying some family vacation time, but there was no avoiding what was going on.
That's right. It's never a good time, Judy, when you're the President of the United States and your own party is finding lots of different ways to distance themselves from you. Report after report was that elected leaders weren't even going to go on television to defend, because they were worried that they would have to defend the president. The short answer, though, is that we don't really know what total effect that the results of Charlottesville and the president's reaction have had. We're starting to get some polling data, but it's really not definitive yet. The only thing we have is history to guide us. And we sat at this table plenty of times during 2016, Judy, where we watched the Access Hollywood tape, the attack on John McCain not being a war hero, the president attacking a Gold Star family who was Muslim, where we said, well, maybe this is it. Maybe the Republican base will now divide over this candidate, this nominee. Obviously, they never did. So I think it's a little bit soon to tell, but it's pretty clear, even in talking to voters, listening to the voices of voters and a lot of reports over the weekend, they're not abandoning this president. The question, of course, is what happens when a president is constantly being where his own party in Congress has to constantly distance themselves and watch out for themselves. How much effect can you have as president when you're only talking to a narrow slice of the electorate over and over again?
Is that what's happening, Pam?
Yes. Now, an interesting thing is there are some rank-and-file Republicans like Bob Corker from Tennessee or Susan Collins from Maine who are saying things that are very clearly distancing themselves from the president and saying it in a way that says the president's name. But then you get someone like Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, or Mitch McConnell, the Majority Leader in the Senate. And Ryan put out a statement today, arguably a very strong statement condemning neo-Nazis, saying there are no sides when it comes to racism and neo-Nazis and white supremacists. Never mentions the president's name. But there certainly is a sense that there are many Republicans in Congress. Obviously, you have these business leaders who have jumped ship from the advisory councils to the president. And all of this indicates that there are a lot of people who aren't as afraid of this president as they were earlier in his presidency.
So Amy, what does that mean? I know we're all, sort of groping,
trying to figure out where does this go?
Trying to understand what has changed. Has anything changed? Are we just right back where we were 8-10 days ago?
It feels like every day is about like a dog year, right? It's like every day is 7 years. And so you have to sort of live within that, knowing that by tomorrow we could be talking about something else. And so it's unclear if there's real systemic damage. But the president has a pretty important task ahead of him as we come back into the fall, and that's, will he be able to get his legislative agenda back on track? And that's where we can have an answer to this question about how much damage did this really do. As I said, if you're a president who's sitting at anywhere between 35 and 40% approval, it's hard to get a whole lot done. It's hard to, first of all, pressure members of Congress with an approval rating that low. And for members who are Republicans, the base may still be with Trump, but they know that independents and other swing voters in their districts may not be. They can't guarantee that he can come and help them in the fall of an election year with approval ratings this low. So it really does limit his ability to be a strong legislator in chief as well as an executive.
And when it comes to appealing to the base, the person who I think most represented the base in the White House, Steve Bannon, is now out as of 3 days ago. Tam, how much difference is that going to make, do we think, in what's going on?
I think we just don't know. How many times have we said on this very set, how much difference is this going to make? Right. This person leaving, this person coming in, this new chief of staff. And I think the answer is we don't know. What we can say is that Steve Bannon is still going to have a voice in this country and on the right. And he also is still going to have a telephone. And President Trump may be unhappy with him now, but as we have seen, people who have been fired from the Trump orbit they come back like celestial beings. They come back around and they come back in, like a Corey Lewandowski, who was fired as campaign manager, who then I saw walking out of the White House the other day. So people go away, they come back, and Steve Bannon is going to continue to have an influence in this White House and with this president, simply, if only because President Trump reads Breitbart News.
Yeah, and the shakeup in the White House is reflective of the broader debate within the party right now between these two different wings of the party, the more establishment versus the anti-establishment, the Tea Party versus the traditional. That is a debate that's raging within the Republican Party. It makes sense that it's also happening within the White House, and that debate isn't going away at any time.
So because as you look at Steve Bannon, who represented all the nationalist instincts
and populist
instincts, the fact that that's not going to be in the president's ear, it's not that he's not going to hear it, but it's not going to be as regular.
It's also still going to be in the president's head. President Trump believes, President Trump has those nationalist instincts.
Right.
I mean, he has been talking about some of these nationalist ideas for years and years and years, well before Steve Bannon entered his orbit.
So that's still going to be there. So as we look to see, okay, different chief of staff, the chief strategist has gone, the communication shop has changed, but the president is still the president.
President's still the president. And as I said, you know, the people who've left the White House, you had one sort of establishment wing with Reince Priebus, the former RNC chairman. Sean Spicer came from the RNC, and then one from the outside. And that's what his policy portfolios looked like thus far. You had some wins from the nationalist side, Steve Bannon's side, the travel ban, pulling out of Paris, but also the more traditionalists have gotten their way as well. So it has been this balancing act within the White House and, of course, within the party. But both those issues are tearing, the difference on those issues are tearing the party apart, and the president's temperament as well.
More to come. Amy Walter, Tamara Keith, Politics Monday. Thank you both.
You're welcome.